Okay, so now we have talked about open science plans at the institute level, and now we move to open science strategies at the country level. Okay, so I would like to invite the first speaker, Esther Jarur. She's a communications lead at the Central European Institute for Technology, CEITEC, at Masaryk University in the Czech Republic. She studied international management and has 15 years of experience in career development and development project in the area of education and youth. And certainly the Czech Republic case is a very interesting example of this whole how this whole dynamics of open science has translated into a national level strategy. So Esther, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to represent CEITEC and Czech Republic at this conference. I will start with screening my sharing my screen. So here. Sorry. So I would start with clarifying that I am representing an institute and not the country, but I will be speaking about a wonderful example where an institute that was involved in ORION project managed to put a way forward for national open science strategies and for the implementation of those strategies. I am from CEITEC, which is Central European Institute of Technology, and it is a life science institute based in Czech Republic. Czech Republic is the only institute that is from Central and Eastern Europe, and that is part of the ORION project. So before I start to talk about the success story, I would like to put the ideas into context. So I will introduce briefly the history of open science in the Czech Republic. So the very first institute from the Czech Republic, which was the grant agency of Czech Republic, signed the Berlin Declaration of Open Access to Knowledge in the Science and Humanities in 2008. And 13 years later, today, we have only 11 institutes that are part of this, that signed this declaration. 2014, there was another important milestone for the Czech Republic. It was when Research Development and Innovation Council of Czech Republic approved the recommendations regarding open access drafted by the Open Access Working Group. The next milestone was in 2016, where the first draft of the National Open Access Strategy was presented to the government, but the country was still missing an overall strategy. In 2017, the first open access strategy was approved, but the action plan was still missing. This was the time when CEITEC joined the ORION project, and we started to begin at our open science policies because we have noticed that there is, very little guidance from a national level. It was difficult for us to produce a coherent open science strategy, because there was always a question mark, how would this align with the national strategy or on a national level? We have realized that other institutes in the country are most probably hindered by the very same issue. So we decided that we will tackle it and we will use the project to do so. So it was clear there is a strong need for National Open Science Action Plan, because action plan is more practical and would provide clear guidance for institutions how to implement the open science principles by following an agreed set of guidelines. So at this time point, we got together with the most active players on the open science area, which was the Open Access Initiative of the Association of Libraries of Czech Universities and the Horizon 2020 Information Desk. And we realized that it is very necessary to bring all stakeholders together if we want to create an action plan that would work and that would drive the needed change that would basically inspire the entire research community to join the open science. So we invited everyone who was impacted by the open science to guided brainstorming sessions that took place on this national stakeholder workshop, where you see the pictures now on the slide. And we gathered almost 50 participants representing funders, scientists, policymakers, students, journalists, and open science advocates. We gathered them in this creative space and we divided them on tables following diversity rules as much as possible. So we try to create diverse groups. And we had guided brainstorming sessions where we discussed the various aspects of open science: open access, open research data, open infrastructure, citizen science, and also policies that already existed or not existed at various institutions that were present. The people from the CETEC team were divided among the discussion tables and consolidated the views from all the groups and tables and draw a consensus. And everything was then compiled and ultimately became a very solid basis for the future action plan for the implementation of the national strategy of the Czech Republic. I do not say that we have the action plan just because of CETEC, but I say that this workshop really helped, and it was great to have the open science experts with us, and that this project could inspire CETEC to achieve certain change, and we were able to bring a change on a national level. Now I would like to show you some pieces of evidence what have changed in the Czech Republic since this workshop. So the strategy was finally, the action plan was finally approved in 2019. But here I have some data from a newly published report from the Association of European Universities. And very interesting fact that is showing that open science in Czech Republic matters is the fact that 25 Czech academic institutions participated in this survey, and Czech Republic was among the most active participating countries. The next slide is showing this more concretely. You can see a map where dark blue countries are the countries that provided the most responses to this open science survey. And I would say that this map is also very similar to ORION project participants, and they seem to be among the most active. What is impressive in case of Czech Republic, it's also the fact that we are a very small country. We have only 10 million people, and we still have 25 universities participating in this survey. So I feel that this is a big piece of evidence that that open science suddenly matters in Czech Republic, and that we are aware that it's important, and universities are taking steps, and the government is taking steps to implement open science principles. Here's some other data about open science in the Czech Republic today. There is a vivid open access community under the initiative of open access that belongs to the Association of Libraries of Czech Universities. There is also a working group of open access and open science managers that are regularly meeting and that share together best practices. Masaryk University, which is the home university of CETEC, or the biggest consortium partner of CETEC, represents open air in the national network of open science experts. There is also an active group supporting open content in the Czech Republic called Creative Commons. And there's also an action group leading the national transformation towards the gold open access model. So concluding remarks from our experience, I would like to state that a well-designed project such as ORION really can drive change on the institutional level, as we said as we saw in Digna's presentation before, and as CETEC can serve as a clear evidence. And also a single institute, when being proactive and participating in a project, can drive a change on a national level, as we have seen the evidence in my presentation. And best countries from one country can inspire other countries to drive change on an international level. Here, I would like to mention our involvement in EU Life and in Alliance for Life, and that CETEC is the only member that is participating in both of those alliances. And we are continuously striving to transfer the best practices that we learn from EU Life also to the other countries in Alliance for Life regions, so in Central and Eastern Europe. And this will be also the case of open science. For us, this project, open science doesn't end with the project, but we are very motivated to help and to inspire the other institute in Central and Eastern Europe to follow Czech Republic's example. And knowledge sharing and best practice sharing are really crucial for positive change in research culture and can help to narrow the innovation gap, which is one of the goals that CETEC would like to achieve. So thank you very much for your attention, and I hope I was not running over time.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Esther, for this inspiring example. In fact, I invite the audience to once again use the chat box to drop their questions and comments and remarks. Sorry, not the chat box, sorry, the question and answer box for the questions and answers, but also check the chat box because the panel is very nicely sharing a set of interesting resources that you can then use and implement if you're interested in this topic. So now let's start the panel discussion. I would like to invite Rachel Bruce, Cecilia Cabello, and Karel Luyben to the panel, and I will introduce each one of them and ask them to very briefly, in 2 minutes, answer to the question, what has been done in your country to embed open science at the national level? So first of all, let's start with Rachel Bruce, Head of Open Research at the UK Research and Innovation UKRI organization. She led the development of the new UKRI open access policy that was announced in August 2021. She's an information scientist, and she, among other achievements, she led the establishment of the UK network of digital repositories. So Rachel, what has been done in the UK to embed open science at the national level in 2 minutes?
Okay, hello everyone. Yeah, so I think some of the main activities, I suppose it's quite useful to chunk it up into open access, open data plus, and then also open culture, which probably some of the incentives issues that you've been looking at. Overall, what we have done is really establish, I think, key forums which bring cross stakeholders together. So whilst we've had a network of digital repositories well established for a long time, and data management plans were introduced early on by all of our research funders, and also fairly early on, following that Berlin statement in 2005, our major research funders made commitments to open access. It's really subsequent to that, putting together structures which have brought together stakeholders, including research performing organisations and their leaders, including funders, and including researchers. So things like our Open Access Universities UK group, so that was led by our Vice Chancellors, which really brought together progress around open access and also monitored progress. So put clear kind of indications and shared evidence together. And that was, I think that's really helped encourage partners to work towards shared goals. It's not always been easy. However, also alongside that, forums such as the Open Research Data Task Force, and that was convened by the Minister for Science at the time, and led by the Royal Society, again, bringing together a wide range of different stakeholders. And then alongside that, the Forum for Responsible Research Metrics, which really took, I think, as its lead, a key report that James Wilsden undertook called the Metrics Tide. And that really put, I think, onto the agenda the idea of responsible metrics, and also encouraged people to sign up behind the DORA declaration and to start to change policies and practices in response to that. Then overall, I think some other important structures that we have are structures such as JISC, the Software Sustainability Institute, the Digital Curation Centre, and more recently established the UK Reproducibility Network. And they work again across stakeholders, developing best practice, also working with funders and policymakers to influence or inform that practice so that it really is something that can be implemented on the ground. And I think that's probably my 2 minutes up, I imagine, is it? Is my 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So I won't say
any more. Your time to finish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Okay, so now over to Cecilia Cabello. She's Director of Operations of the Spanish Foundation for Science and Innovation, FECIT, where she has worked on open science, and she has a degree in food science and a master in science, technology, and society. Up to you, Cecilia.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction and for inviting me to be here. I think it's a great opportunity to briefly express what we've done in Spain. I think to summarize it in a nutshell, it's been a gradual approach, both top down and bottom up, because that's the only way a national open science policy can really, at least in a large country like ourselves, can really work. So I would say we started with a law in 2011 that had to do, like UK, there's a difference between open access of publications and how it moves to data and open science in a more general sense. So in 2011, we had the Law of Science that has a specific article that refers to open access of publications, publicly funded publications. So this is where we would, I guess, would be a good starting point at the national level. And also at the national level, from that time, as you heard from in the 2 days, we hear institutions like the Carlos III or universities or regions moving towards open access policies within, how could I say, in their ambit. So the top-down, bottom-up approach, which has culminated into the national strategy in 2021 to 2027. The Spanish strategy is just approved this year, which basically outlines and supports completely open science in its more complete sense, and not just access of publications. We're talking about a wider scope of understanding open science data, publications, and open science practices. The strategy was published, and then we have a plan, a national plan, which is the funding, which is actually the funding mechanisms and what is going to be implemented in Spain with respect to open science. And in there, the open science, there's a new call that will support the funding of infrastructures, which is new. And this is also positive because it's a national initiative, and it's being managed by FACIT. Also at the national level, we are working with the stakeholders, the main funding agencies, the main research performing organizations, and the ministries involved, both the Ministry of Universities and the Ministry of Science. And we set up a commission of open science, what we called COS, and we had two levels of the COS. We had a technical level, which basically tried to learn from what has been done in other European countries and outside, what best fits Spain for establishing an open science national plan. So we don't have a national plan for open science particularly, but gradually, like I said, we've been moving towards that. And so the group COS is working on a draft of a national plan specifically for open science, which includes measures, which includes specific funding, which includes, how could I say, a more targeted approach to open science. So that's all on my side, besides the fact I didn't want to mention myself, FACIT. Our institution is also supporting at institutional level. We're the National Science Foundation for Spain, and we are providing the groundwork for making open science possible, especially related to infrastructures with our harvester Recolecta, among other things. That's all on my side.
Thanks a lot, Cecilia. Now the next speaker is Karel Luyben. He is Rector Magnificus Emeritus at Delft University, where he has been professor of biochemical engineering since the 80s, and he is the co-chair of EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud, among many other.
Wow.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, okay. So please, the stage is yours, Karel.
Thank you very much, Michelle, and thank you also for inviting me here. Maybe a small correction on the last position. I'm the president of the EOSC Association. So there is not an organization called EOSC. EOSC is what we're trying to create. And I was the co-chair of the executive board of EOSC, which was established by the Commission, which ended in 2020. And since then, we have started this association. But coming back to your topic is the national development of open science, in this case in the Netherlands. As many countries, we have started around 2003 with the open access development. By the way, we're now at 85% of our publications being published open access from the Netherlands, from all our authors. But the step towards what we would call open science was made in 2016, when we had the presidency in Europe and when we had the Amsterdam movement. And then we presented our plan in 2017. This was a 4-year plan till 2020, which is basically just ending. And we're now almost finished writing next plan for 2021-2030. So we deliberately chose a 10-year period in order to show that the development of open science is a gradual thing. Within that plan, we have 3 development lines. One is on open access. I just mentioned where you are at the moment. The other one is on fair data. And this is basically the collection of all the effort in the country related to fair data and then connecting that to EOSC. And the third one is on citizen science. And then we have 3 boundary conditions we always include. One is skills. We do skills development. We have, by the way, now a system within the universities where data stewards get a formal position. They are recognized as positions in the universities at different levels. The other one is on rewards and recognition, involving open science, among other things, in evaluating researchers and rewarding them. And the third one is on metrics. How do we monitor how far we are with this development? We've set up a steering board for open science, which is meeting regularly, let's say 2 monthly, and it has the University Association in it, so all the universities are represented, the university medical centers, and the funder. These are the 3 main parties. If you have these 3 parties, we are talking about more than 85%, probably 90% of all the research being done in the country. But next to that, we have what we call an advisory board, which is basically an extension of the steering board, where the universities of applied sciences are, the libraries are there, the service providers like SURF and the e-infrastructures are there. And that combined meets every 2 months, exchanges everything also in writing to develop the 3 program lines I mentioned. There's 2 other things which are worthwhile mentioning, I think. One is the network of open science communities, which is a bottom-up network in 12 universities in the country. And the other one is the network in Europe on what we call CONOSC, the Council of Open Science Coordination in the different countries. I will now put in the chat the reference to both. So there's a reference now to CONOSC and there's a reference to the open science community, in this case Delft, but that links to the other open science communities. By the way, I think the UK has done something similar in what they call, I think, open research communities or something, or open, well, I forgot the exact name, but a very similar network. And we're now discussing whether we could make this a European network of bottom-up organizations in the different research performing organizations, mainly universities, to work on open science. That, for the time being, is enough, I think.
Thanks a lot. So for very different and interesting ways of getting to an open science national strategy, either formalized or in a draft form. So we have about 5 minutes for debates and question and answer. I would start with questions from the floor. So there is one from Natasha to Esther, and she says, thanks for your enthusiastic and motivational contribution. Why did CEITEC, so your institution, take on this role? Was the director of senior management committed from the start, or was there a bottom-up momentum?
Thanks a lot for the question. It's a pleasure to answer such a question. So in this case, it was really the project, in this Orion case, the project that kickstarted our motivation to join this role. At that time, it was Markus Dettenhofer, who was the director of the CEITEC consortium, and he brought a lot of modern things to Czech Republic. He is an American who also had experience in Brussels. And thanks to him, we were part of this project, and also thanks to him, we were part of EU Live. And CEITEC is a new institute, only 10 years old. We were founded in 2011. And from the beginning, it was our ambition to be progressive and to perform like one of the leading European institutes. And we put it as a part of our strategy. And we have piloted a lot of things that then other institutes in the Czech Republic took from us. We were the first one to have, for example, gender equality plans. We were the first one to take measures against inbreeding. And we were the first one who established career development for researchers of all career stages, things that were not common in our part of the world, and that we are very happy that other institutes then took from us, and we just like to serve as the best practice leading pioneer, somebody who is trying out new things, testing if it works or not, and then sharing the experience.
Okay, so there is one more question, but in fact, it's more tailored to the previous panel. So if anybody in the previous panel is still there, I will pose the question to them at the end. But first of all, but before that, I would like to ask a question myself. Okay, so you have sketched 4 different paths, very different ones. But I would like to ask you an effort to help people that may come from countries in which a national strategy is not so well developed, to inform them or to suggest them what sort of buttons one have to push to sort of scale up the effort towards open science. So is it a matter of really having it in the law, like in the Spanish case, or is it a matter of having a broader political commitment, funding, maybe obtaining a specific funding scheme on that, lower level regulations? That is, where would you suggest people to start to trigger a movement at the country level in this direction? Any thought on that?
I can say a little bit. Sorry, I went
No,
ahead.
go ahead. Yeah. You can use the raise your hand tool if you want.
Okay, I think we have to combine soft measures with more formal measures. I think that's the way forward. I think that's experience, and in the end, we're all talking about top down and bottom up measures. The top down obviously are the laws or the strategies and the plans, and these are very positive and these are good. But you need the bottom up also measures where you establish the networks, you establish the incentives, you establish and I think you have to work directly with the institutions themselves or the research community. I think it's both things. So I think bottom up is not the only way, and I think top down is not the only way. I think they have to converge. So you need soft measures and you need more how can I say, formal measures to be able to come this way. And for our experience, like it's been a 10-year period, it seems like a long time, but I think we've progressed a lot from the 2011, the law, where it has, an open access article, to where we are now, where by the end of the year, we should have a specific strategy for open science. So I think this evolution has been very positive, and I think the velocity that a country takes needs to take that into account when their research community is ready to tackle on these type of issues. That would be my input on there.
Yes, Carol?
Well, I very much agree with that. Only top-down doesn't work, only bottom-up doesn't work. So you really need both. And the more you are able to combine bottom-up, the communities, all the universities, the more pressure you can put onto the government and onto the systems to implement it in the law, to get money available. We are still struggling in our country where there's a good acceptance in the ministries for this development, for more money for the Fair Data program, for money for the citizen science program, and we always have to find new sources for project money. So it's really, as Cecilia said, it's a real combination of top down, bottom up. But if one of the two is lacking, it's probably not going to work.
Okay. So there was this additional. Okay, please, Rachel, go on.
Sorry, because I think it's probably one thing I'd just like to add to that is I do think, obviously, the context that you're working in, I know it's perhaps an obvious thing to say, but you have different tools in different countries. So, for example, in the UK, we wouldn't put this into law. It's just not the approach. But what we would do is have strong policies from our funders. And we have particular tools that not all countries have in terms of their research system. So one thing that, and I totally agree with everyone, it's top down, bottom up, it's sideways, and it's doing what seems to be appropriate at the time. But one aspect, and I think a major tool that we have, is the Research Excellence Framework, which has been able to put in open access requirements, but also there's this really quite clever part in it, which is the research environment. And it drives 15% of the research allocation. And in that research environment, research performing institutions, alongside their research outcomes that they share, they also need to share what are the approaches that they're doing to support their research, to be open, transparent, and all of those things. So I think, it does depend on the sort of context that you have, the different tools that you have, just speaking to the point about whether it should be in legislation or otherwise.
Okay, so there was this other question about how you would you please describe the involvement of the library of your institution in open science? But I think this is really a question more addressed to the institutional level, and I think Emma is answering through the chat. So if I'm not mistaken, otherwise correct me. So maybe she can answer to that directly. One last question before I think we're really running out of time, so I will leave it here unless you have any additional remark. So thanks to the panel, thanks for providing inspiration and for providing also practical advice for on national level strategies development. And before the break, in fact, I would like to involve one more time the whole audience in a Menti questionnaire. So please connect to Menti and to the number that will be shared on the screen. The first question I would like to ask you is whether your country has a national policy or strategy on open science or not. And let's see what is the balance among those that are joining this event. So I guess the answer, okay. So quite, yeah. By now, most people don't know, so it's good that they are here so that they can learn about it. And then there is a quite negative, I must say, balance. Okay, no, now it's in balance. So among the rest, half and half. Okay, no, six respondents say their country do have a national strategy, and 6 say no. So we don't know, seven say no. So we don't know whether there are repeated countries among these groups, but this gives us the gist of the situation. Secondly, how advanced is open science in your country? So what is your perception on how open science is developing in your country? Okay, so it looks like a mixed feeling picture. So really just one respondent is saying that it's not advanced at all, and the bulk of the audience is saying it's making efforts. But I think it's a reasonable answer given the situation, given what we have heard until now, which is a work in process. And I'm happy that at least one person say it's very advanced. Okay.